Warning! The Anime Egotists have opinions about stuff and other stuff. Please understand this while watching the video and know that no opinion is a fact, not even yours. So please enjoy the video. Or don't.
I'm Android17, and also Psyche's dad, and you're watching Anime Egotists.
And welcome back to the Anime Egotist Bias Roundtable, where in our case, our animation is the problem, because look at these mugs. We got me, Foster, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Williamson.
And together, we're here. We are the Anime Egotists, and we are here to talk about, well, anime. Like, what else? What else are we here to talk about? Taxes? I don't know. Oh, but the thing is, we're here to talk about reboots. Now, Williamson, the reboot in anime is a really kind of strange thing. Oftentimes, you'd think people would be against watching their favorite show over and over and over again, but in reality, people like seeing it. And some shows need the reboot or remake treatment more than others.
Yeah, and sometimes it involves going through and getting a new series that tells a similar story to the original, or maybe follows the manga more closely, trying to reach the same conclusion. We'll give our reasons for each of the animes that we list as we talk about them.
That's right, because we each have our own lists, and I'm sure even if we disagree on some of them, even if we agree, we'll both still hate each other at the end of this.
Like always.
So, Williamson, what is your first anime that needs a reboot?
So I'm going to start with Blue Exorcist, I think, is my first one.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's one I remember watching. I think I remember seeing it on Toonami when it was coming out in the English dub for a few episodes. Again, later on, I would watch it on one of the Funimation or wherever it is. I just know that the original anime, because they decided to rush it out, they didn't wait for the manga to end. So there's like a whole bunch of arcs, from what I hear, that have since been written for the manga that haven't been adapted. And of course, they ended the first series with a big climactic battle that really wasn't part of the story from the originals. So go back, start from the beginning, and then I know they've done, I forgot what the name of the arc is. There's one arc that they've released since, but redo it from the start. Tell the entire story straight through.
Yeah, that was not on my list, but I can definitely agree with that. A lot of people said Blue Exorcist could have been so much bigger than what it was, and the last several parts of it were kind of a mess. So I'd be completely on board with that. All right.
Yeah.
My first anime, Soul Eater. Dear Lord, I'm not going to say Soul Eater could have been like one of the greatest anime of all time, but it had some serious potential. And like I'd say the first good chunk of it is really, really good. But we have to get to the ending. The ending where, spoiler alert, Maka beats the main villain with one punch. Like, come on. Like, there's no reason why you should have built up a big bad this much and just one punch just ends it all. The series is over. Not only that, but they could have maybe built upon some of the characters a little bit more, oh, dear God, Soul Eater was not what was funny. It was not what people were hoping for. So maybe a redone version of Soul Eater, maybe just Soul Eater not, but obviously a better ending, a better sequel, just a follow-up in some regards. So it's on my list.
Yeah, I agree. I remember watching it. I think we watched most of it together, actually, because we started at about the same time. Yeah, I've seen parts of the ending, and it's just like and doesn't it not follow the ending of the manga? Isn't there more to the manga?
There might be. I haven't read the manga in so long.
Well, give or take, but yeah, there could have been more build-up for the ending.
I definitely think so. Okay, Williamson, what is your next anime that needs a reboot?
I kind of want to group these two together. It's Yu Yu Hakusho and Rurouni Kenshin. Both I remember airing on Toonami and seeing an episode here or there as a kid. but again, I never got to see them all in order. I've thought about going back and rewatching them now that I can find them on different streaming services, but I really think, I mean, they're one of those that, I mean, when they were coming out, they were big. They were up there with Dragon Ball and stuff at the time. So, even though I know they've reached their natural conclusion, why haven't they gotten their chance to be re-released with updated animation and given a chance to shine and bring in a new generation? Because I know there's a lot of people who are turned off by animated that looks older, like those two. I know they've released a movie for Rurouni Kenshin and an OVA for Yu Yu Hakusho in the last little bit, but I mean, redo the anime, release it with new animation. You could always redo the voice actors, but if you think the voice actors are good, then keep the original. Just re-release it with new animation.
And for God's sakes, fix that third season of Rurouni Kenshin. Dear God, after 2 great seasons, forget it. 2 great seasons, and then just, no, we're going to stop now.
But yeah, I just think that you could bring in so many new fans if you give them a chance to update it and re-release it.
I can definitely side with you there. My next, and this is going to be a little surprising for you, Beelzebub. I love Beelzebub, but dear God, it differed from the manga so much more than it needed to. A lot of the fights were shorter. Some of the there were a lot of training arcs in, not necessarily training arcs, but just moments where you would see the side characters training and get stronger and everything in the manga. But unfortunately, it didn't really show in the anime. In fact, in the anime, there's not even really a climactic battle. Oga and Baby Beetle fight like maybe 1 or 2 henchmen and then get teleported away fighting somebody else. Like, that's not, we want to see the final fight. We want to see everything that's happening. Not only that, but it also didn't end where the manga ended. The manga went much further and developed a lot more characters and that sort of thing. So maybe a different, just everything. More episodes, bring back the voice actors because I like them all. All the animation's fine, everything. You can use the same studio. Maybe even get an English dub. Because this is one of those anime that delinquent anime speak to people. And I feel like this one in particular did a really good job with its humor and its action. All it needs is just a better ending and even more of a follow-up, just in my eyes.
I can kind of get behind that. From what I remember, I didn't watch it as much as you did, but I did watch some. I remember, like, throughout the first part, the main character, like, beats up all the side characters, but then in the next thing, he's struggling to fight people, but then some of these side characters that are now his allies are almost as strong or able to help him. And it's like, how did they get so much stronger without any development? So yeah, I can understand wanting to get a bit of the training shown and show them to develop it and how they got.
I need my training montage of Tojo going out into the woods and fighting all the bears he can. Because the fact that we did not get that on screen is a crime. Like that should definitely be looked into.
All right. Since I did 2, do you want to do another one?
Sure. A lot of people forget this show existed. Zatch Bell. Dear God, at least Beelzebub, at least Solier, at least those relatively ended after a big boss fight, and they were able to basically move on. Zatch Bell, from what I remember of the dub, didn't even get there. Like they took it off TV, like in the middle of a really huge arc, and then they said, "Oh, you can watch it on Toonami.com," which just really isn't the same thing as staying up late every Saturday night and watching it all together. Furthermore, I love Zatch Bell, but I felt like, I don't know how much of a controversial statement this is going to be, I felt like there were times it was a little too goofy, which it's a relatively kid show, so I can understand that, but there were times where I didn't know if it wanted to be super action-packed or super comedic. So maybe a reboot of sorts, they could kind of try and find their footing. Obviously, bring back the voice actors you want to, keep some of the awesome fights and the heartfelt moments. Not only that, but it's been so long since Zatch Bell has ended or whatever you would want, or has been taken off the air, that I don't feel like
canceled.
Canceled. So I don't think too many people would be upset if a remake happened.
From what I saw, it's on most of the lists when I was doing some research about figuring out what needs a reboot. So, and I completely agree on this. I loved the show as a kid. I actually went back and rewatched the first kind of arc where they're meeting all the main characters that are going to take part in the battle and all that. So it still holds up in some respects. I do agree it can be on the goofy side in some parts, but yeah, it needs a reboot.
Yes, except this time, make a version where Conchame and Fulgore beat everybody.
As long as they keep that song.
Of course. I'm sure Fulgore's voice actor is still out and about. He's only being Kakashi in Naruto and Boruto. I think he'd probably be up for it. Let me tweet at him and get an answer sometime. But anyways, Zach, we both agree on Zatch Bell. What is your next anime?
So my next one is one we've talked about a lot on this channel, and that's Pokemon.
Oh God, again.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. This one, they may be doing it with this one. I've heard rumors again, but we've always heard rumors every other season that something's going to change. But they could make so much money by marketing a specific version with new characters towards a more adult audience. They have such a large fan base ranging from the 6-year-old demographic all the way up to people in their 20s and 30s at this point, probably. Maybe even older.
Maybe even, I was about to say, maybe at 50s or 60s at this point.
But a lot of the time, the anime doesn't play. They did a good job in X and Y of improving it so that it's good for kids, but then even older fans can enjoy it a bit more because there was action. There felt like there were consequences. The world was ending in that one pretty much at one point.
I still have nightmares about what happened with Clembot. I don't want to get into that though.
But yeah, so make a darker, more action, more battle oriented. I know Pokemon's battle oriented, but you could, if you center it all around that, or someone having to stop the evil team and make that the heart of the show rather than the adventure aspect of the kids version. I think you could make a real nice balance and have a new show for the older fans.
I seem to recall you saying that if they ever did a remake of any kind, that it should be about the Pokemon War that we've never really gotten that much confirmation on.
Could follow Ash's dad, and we learned that he died in the war.
Something like that. Or better yet, just game characters or characters that just aren't Ash. I know we've talked about this ad nauseum, so I'm going to keep it short. I agree with that. Darker stuff, game characters, or just somebody new. Let's move on. We talk about Pokemon too much on this channel. All right, my next anime that needs to be rebooted. People are going to know about this anime even less. Blue Dragon.
I really remember watching it as a kid, but I don't remember anything about what it was about.
Okay, so I might as well throw out the premise for the people who don't know. Blue Dragon was this show on Toonami, and it was about these characters who had shadows. They basically powered up Dragon Ball Z style, and their shadows would morph into like somebody had a bull or a dragon, and all of those had special powers. But the main problem for them was, first of all, the time slot that they had, because there were times where new episodes came out at Saturday at 9 a.m. Most Toonami shows, most of them start at night, 8. So everybody's up. You can watch it before you go to bed or something like that. Not a lot of kids I know, especially in the age nowadays, would be waking up at 9 a.m. to watch something. But in the sense of now, you can release it on like Crunchyroll, whatever. People can watch it on their own leisure. And not only that, but it's also one of those cases where it didn't really get finished. And I felt like it had a lot of potential. I want to say the creator of Dragon Ball Z had a good hand in this. Maybe he created it himself. I have no idea. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I believe Akira Toriyama designed the characters. I don't know if he was writing the manga or anything, but I'm pretty sure he designed the characters at least.
Exactly. And just, it's another one of those cases where sometimes it felt a little too goofy, but if they can keep the goofiness, in my opinion, because even Dragon Ball Z gets kind of strange at times, so you don't have to change the themes all that much. Just bring it back, update the animation a little, make the fights a little more intense, that sort of thing. I think it could definitely make money with a reboot.
Yeah, I think especially, I mean, Toriyama does such a good job with his characters. I think it might be worth looking back into. And I think that one's got a lot of games that have come out that tell stories.
It has a few games, but none of them follow the story. Like, the two of the main characters butt heads all the time in the anime, but in the video game, they're like best friends and they never argue with each other, which is kind of weird, but I do appreciate the fact that this game decided to say, you know what, not every single anime video game has to follow the story. We can make up some stuff. I wish anime games now decide to go that route, looking at you, Dragon Ball Z, looking at you, Naruto, but that's another point for another day. Blue Dragon, that's my pick. Do you agree, disagree? What's up?
I could agree with that. It's one of those that, as I said, I only watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes, so I don't really remember it. And I think it was right when it was first airing, so of course they're trying to introduce everything, but in the first 2 or 3 episodes, they probably didn't introduce everything, so that's probably why I don't remember it.
All right. Okay, so we've done four each so far.
Yeah, should we do our honorable mentions and then our final ones?
Let's do our honorable mentions first. You go first.
All right, I have 3 honorable mentions. I'll start with Bleach. I really think that it should have gotten a complete redo to go through all the arcs and actually finish. But now that it's getting its final arc, it doesn't really need it, so that's why it dropped off my list. And if you hadn't heard, yes, Bleach is supposed to be getting I think it's 1,000-year war, blood war arc. I forgot what the name of it is exactly. Sometime next year. After that, I have both One Piece and Naruto needing some sort of reboot. Now would be a good chance for them to get more of the Kai treatment, the Dragon Ball Z Kai treatment. So remove the filler during some of the longer fights, shorten it, select the action oriented and like the stuff that focuses the story, and get it down to a lot less. I mean, One Piece is like 80%. Yeah, One Piece is like 80% filler, and Naruto's like 70% filler. So.
Hey, as long as we get the Shino laughing arc, that's all that really matters with me in this reboot. That's the best episode.
And then my final one, and this isn't even really a reboot. It's more of, I just want someone to, and maybe you can do it in the comments, the Fate Stay series. There's like 10 series all involved in it. People tell me to watch different series to start, so I have no idea if I'm supposed to start with the Fate Stay Night series, or the first series, whatever it's called, or there's like several prequels, or a sequel, and people tell me to start at each of these different ones. It's like, tell me which one I need to start with so I can get into the series. So if you put it all together in either a chronological order or the order in which it should be watched, that's how I want to watch it.
Or you can make his life really miserable and list every single episode in alphabetical order. Then he'll watch it that way.
That'll be interesting as characters come back to life and then die.
Of course, obviously. Okay, so I have a few honorable, and I'm okay with all of those. I know most people won't be, but I could live with them being rebooted, especially since we have Naruto, we have One Piece. Those are all on Netflix. We'll be fine with that. Okay, so I actually have 4 honorable mentions, and the first two are lumped together: Yu-Gi-Oh! GX and Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Dear Lord, it makes me so sad that my 2 favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Series couldn't even finish their last season in the dub. But also, it kind of upsets me because there are a lot of problems in Yu-Gi-Oh! Especially with GX and 5Ds. there are a lot of characters like Bastion, Alexis, even Chaz to an extent in GX who kind of fall to the wayside, where I feel like they should have been developed over people like Cyrus and Chumley only being around for one season at that. But there's just a lot of characters that they could have put more of a focus on. But I'm not crying for it, so that's why it's an honorable mention. Meanwhile, in 5D, is supposedly a lot of stuff they wanted to do, especially with Akiza, got thrown to the wayside over real life going on events. So maybe not even necessarily a remake, but maybe just another Yu-Gi-Oh series, but with maybe bring back Akiza, and who knows, they might have done that by this point. But just, I don't know. Oh, just a few characters, so that's why it's an honorable mention, like I said. My next one, GT, Dragon Ball GT. Sure, we technically got Super, even though some people say GT is better than Super, which, why? No, it's not. But GT is just a whole mess of everything. So I feel like if they decide to remake it nowadays, people might be a little more fond of it. But once again, we have Super now, which pretty much has taken its place. So that's why it's an honorable mention. Do you agree with those?
I agree with Yu-Gi-Oh on both. With GT, I would almost want it to be like talking, like somehow introduce it as this is an alternate timeline, similar to how Future Trunks now lives in an alternate timeline. So in this case, Beerus didn't wake up, so now this is how things developed. There was a longer peace time. And that way it fits together better than trying to make it in later on in Super, unless they somehow end Super saying that, oh, well, now Goku and Vegeta can't go Super Saiyan God, but that seems like it would be stupid. So
that would be a pretty big cop-out. But I'm not even saying the series, just just like a movie or two, and it doesn't have to do anything with the story, just say alternate timeline, and we can move on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I have one last one that I knew wasn't going to be on your list that I've been contemplating, which is why it's just an honorable mention, because I know you have not seen this show.
All right.
I'm gonna get yelled at for this one. My last honorable mention is Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions. You know, I always say when it comes to romance anime, it gets really boring when the final episode or the final chapter or whatever has the characters getting together. And Love and Chunibyo doesn't do that. The second or third last episode of the first season has our two main characters getting together, which is nice. But dear God, that second season is a slog to get through. First, there's no real development between the two. You don't really feel them getting all that much closer or anything. And it feels like they're kind of trying to change each other at some points. And this one girl, whose name happens to be Nibutani's like, hey, you guys should be doing better with your relationship. And I'm like, Nibutani, shut your ass up. Nobody cares what you think about this relationship. Where's your boyfriend? Oh, that's right. You don't have one. That's right. Hey, but in all seriousness, the second season just felt unfocused at times, and Kyoto Animation, despite all the horrible stuff they've gone through, they seem to be recovering. I think that this is a series that they could look at and think maybe a remake of some type could help.
I've never seen the series, so I'll take your word for it. I don't know.
I didn't mean to go off on Nibutani like that, but she did deserve it. Oh, also, just one last thing. There are a few other characters who are just do nothing in the story. So either find a way to give them more to do, or no, that's it. Just find a way to give them more to do. Ooh, but like I said, it's an honorable mention because it was in my head, but I was still contemplating it. So, what is your last anime that needs to be rebooted?
So this one's going to be a bit of a strange one, and it's Zoids. And for those of you who don't know, it's somewhere in between Transformers and Gundam. Pretty much it's giant mechs that are in the shape of animals and dinosaurs and other creatures, and they battle it out. against other Zoids piloted by people. I personally grew up with the series based on the Chaotic Century and the New Century. And I know that they just released another series about 2 years ago, but I only watched the first like 4 episodes, and as far as I remember, it was different. The Zoids were smaller, so they rode on top of them rather than in cockpits like the original series. I wanted to go back to the original. I mean, there's stuff I played, and I even played it with Alec or Foster. The Zoids Battle Legends. I mean, the story mode in that game is actually kind of dark. You're like, it's all out war between people. I mean, I think that bringing that back and actually going with like a nice animation style and fight like giant mechs fighting, battling, they could be really a good anime now.
I mean, especially considering with the popularity of giant robots fighting each other nowadays, or well, always at this point, I definitely think Zoids could be in for a reboot. I haven't seen it, but I played the video game with you. It seemed interesting. It was fun, despite the fact that one of our roommates was definitely not into watching us playing it. But other than that, I think Zoids is a good pick. It's weird how we really haven't disagreed on any of these.
Yeah, I mean, most of them we've seen or we both seen, so we both would like a reboot.
Or we haven't seen it and we just don't care enough. It's like, yeah, sure, whatever, just maybe.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for my last one?
Yeah.
The last anime for me that needs a reboot, Hitman Reborn. This anime for all intents and purposes, it's really good. The action's nice, the characters are decent. There are a couple that can get on your nerves, but other than that, it's a cool mafia-esque, somewhat like a couple people would say delinquent-esque anime, but it works. The problem is the pacing. Whenever you hear somebody talk about this show, whenever they first get into it, they're like, it's all right. It's not really, I mean, not a whole lot has happened yet, but it's still not that great so far. And people always say, oh, just wait. Like people say for shows like Gintama, skip the first 2 episodes because they're at a different point in the show and start with episode 3. People with Naruto say, skip the filler, so this episode through this episode, and then move on. People say for One Piece, skip these certain episodes and everything. But for Hitman Reborn, people have told me several times, skip the first 60 episodes. That is unacceptable. You can't ask an audience to say, hey guys, the first 60 episodes don't really mean anything. After that, that's where things start to get really, really good. And I know, it's a great show. Oh, but that's a lot of patience, especially for people nowadays who hated on shows like Black Clover for having 7 episodes? Like, I don't know. Oh, so a tighter set of episodes. It doesn't necessarily have to be less episodes, but just faster paced episodes. I think if you would remake Hitman Reborn with a faster pace, I think a lot of people, especially nowadays who haven't seen it, would definitely get into it and maybe revitalize the franchise.
Yeah, I remember you watching some, and you've told me that, and I've heard you have to skip a large number of episodes. So, yeah, that really makes no sense because the first few episodes are supposed to introduce you to the world and let you get an understanding for it. So if you have to skip those just to get to something good, it gets hard to want to keep watching something like that.
And for those of you who are wondering why we didn't put a show like Boruto on that, because Boruto gets that same complaint, it's still going. We can't really say it needs a reboot right now.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, for the most part, we tried to avoid stuff that's ongoing, stuff that's relatively new within the last 2-3 years, and tried to do stuff that was different. Some of it could be action. I think a lot of our stuff was action now that I think about it, but again, those usually are the best for reboots.
Yeah, that mainly action and stuff. Honestly, I really don't expect any of these anime to ever get rebooted. And all of these anime are good, or good to great in some degree. But it's just this sense of they could have just been so much better. Some of them could have been a little better, some of them a lot, and some of them I'm perfectly fine with them never being touched again. But it's good to think about.
Yeah, I mean, you see stuff all the time now getting rebooted. I mean, as a kid, my dad introduced me to what was it? Star Blazers. It's for the people who know it by the Japanese name. I think it's Space Battleship Yamato. They re-released it in Japan a few years ago, and then just re-released it with updated animation. So I rewatched it with the new animation about a year ago. So you'll never know. I mean, that came out in like the 60s or 70s and got redone.
So we'll be watching the redone Beelzebub, Roni Kenshin, and Love Chunibyo and Other Delusions when we're both in like our 60s or 70s.
That is quite possible.
That's right. And hopefully we'll still be around for that. It might just be you by yourself at that point, just you running the channel.
I'll leave your corpse next to me.
Works for me. But speaking of corpses, actually no, that doesn't work as a transition. And speaking of people we want to keep around, our lovely fans. So please let us know. Do you guys agree with any of our suggestions for reboots? Do you disagree? Did we miss anything? We probably missed a whole lot. Just let us know down in the comments. I don't have anybody to give a shout out to this time since we haven't had any new subscribers since the last video, but if I've missed you and for a shout out, just let me know. Just send us an email. Just write in the comments. I never got my shout. We'll send one. We'll send one to you.
Yeah. Other than that, thank you all for watching.
Yeah. And this was the Anime Egotists Bias Roundtable, where our animation is definitely our problem, and some of our character development. We're not good people. And we'll see you guys in the next video. This has been Foster.
And Williamson.
And with the Anime Egotist, if you disagree, you're wrong. Until you get a reboot, and then you might still be wrong, but we appreciate you trying.
You're watching Anime Egotists! And actually, I'm a better trainer than Brendan. Oh, come on, May. A little humility?